The day I became the most reviled resident of Willow Creek was the day I became its most powerful. $500, that's what Margaret Hensley and her homeowners association slapped me with for kayaking with my grieving son. What they didn't know was that I had 3 million reasons to fight back, and enough grit to use every single one of them. My name is Lucas Harrow, and until 4 months ago, I was living what most would call the American dream. For 2 decades, I navigated the cutthroat world of private equity, building a portfolio that let me retire at 40 after selling my stake in a logistics firm for a sum that still feels surreal. But money doesn't insulate you from heartbreak. My partner, Elena, lost her fight with leukemia 2 years ago, leaving me to raise our 12-year-old son, Caleb, alone. Grief was a tidal wave that nearly drowned us both. The only thing that kept us afloat was kayaking, the last activity we shared as a family before Elena's health crumbled. Those quiet moments on the water, with Elena's laughter echoing in our memories, were our lifeline. So when I decided we needed a fresh start, I searched for a home near a river, a sanctuary where we could heal. Willow Creek caught my eye. Upscale homes, top-tier schools, and an 8-acre river winding through the community like a ribbon of glass. The realtor described the homeowners association as standard fare, rules for lawn care, fence heights, exterior paint colors. Nothing to worry about, she said, though her pause before adding, Margaret Hensley, the HOA president, is dedicated to maintaining property standards, should have raised a red flag. I'd faced down ruthless deal-makers in boardrooms. How bad could one neighborhood bureaucrat be? I found out on a crisp May morning. Caleb and I were kayaking on the river, the water so clear you could see fish darting below. Caleb's face lit up as he spotted a heron, his first real smile in months. We'd been out for an hour when a sharp voice sliced through the peace. "Excuse me, what exactly do you think you're doing?" A woman in her early 60s strode toward us, dressed in pristine golf attire, her auburn hair sculpted into a flawless bob. She clutched a smartphone, her expression like we just spray-painted her front door. "I'm Margaret Hensley, HOA president," she declared, as if it were a crown she wore. "Kayaking is strictly prohibited on this river. It's a violation of HOA regulations. The fine is $500. Caleb stiffened beside me, his paddle dipping into the water. "There must be a misunderstanding," I said, forcing a calm tone. "The realtor specifically highlighted kayaking as a community feature. It's why we chose this place." Margaret's smile was cold, her eyes narrowing. "The regulation was amended last month. All residents were notified via email. Ignorance of the rules doesn't exempt you from following them." She swiped her phone to show a document titled Amendment to River Recreation, dated 5 weeks earlier. "We never received any email," I said, my voice steady but firm. Margaret's lips pursed. "I personally oversee all communications. The email was sent to every household. Perhaps you should check your spam folder. I can't be responsible for residents who don't bother to read official notices." I pushed further. "Why ban kayaking? This river is perfect for it. I can see fish thriving right there." I gestured to the shallows, where minnows flickered. Margaret glanced at our kayak with thinly veiled contempt. "Environmental and aesthetic concerns. Boats disturb wildlife, and residents don't want their river views spoiled by recreational clutter while they're enjoying their morning coffee on their decks." Her tone carried a deeper edge, not just about the kayak, but about us. It was the kind of subtle jab I'd heard in boardrooms, cloaked in politeness, but dripping with judgment. "We're careful," I said. "We don't leave trash, and we paddle quietly to avoid disturbing anything." Margaret's expression tightened. "Mr. Harrow, Willow Creek upholds certain standards. This isn't a public marina or some casual campground. Longtime residents expect a particular ambiance. Newcomers often struggle to adapt to our community's expectations." The implication was clear, and anger flared in my chest. Before I could respond, Caleb's voice broke. "Dad, can we just go?" His eyes were glossy, his hands trembling on the paddle. "We'll pack up," I said quietly, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Please email me the details of the fine and the full updated regulations." Margaret's smile returned, sharp and victorious. "Excellent. I'm glad we understand each other. Do check your email more carefully, Mr. Harrow. We wouldn't want further misunderstandings. She turned and walked away, her polished loafers silent on the manicured grass. As we hauled the kayak to the car, Caleb whispered, "Why was she so mean? We weren't hurting anything." I struggled for an answer that wouldn't burden a 12-year-old. "Some people care more about rules than people, kiddo," I said finally. "Let's go home." That evening, after scouring my inbox and spam folder and finding no trace of the email, I started digging into the HOA's operations. Margaret Hensley had been president for 9 consecutive years, a reign that felt more like a dictatorship. By day, she ran a boutique interior design firm, Hensley Designs, catering to affluent neighborhoods. Her social media was a curated gallery of riverfront cocktail parties, string lights, jazz bands, clinking glasses, events that somehow didn't violate her aesthetic concerns. I scrolled through photos of her laughing with Willow Creek's elite, their decks overlooking the very river she'd just fined me for using. Most telling was a clause buried in the HOA bylaws. The river was a common property amenity, leased from Pinnacle Properties, the original developers, with the lease expiring in 6 weeks. The HOA didn't own it outright, despite Margaret's posturing. The next morning, I ran into Clara Beaumont, a retired paralegal walking her terrier near my house. She was in her 70s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. When I mentioned Margaret, her face soured. "You've met our neighborhood dictator," she said, shaking her head. "She enforces rules like they're personal vendettas. Most folks just pay her fines to keep the peace." I recounted the kayaking incident, and Clara's expression darkened. "That's classic Margaret. She's been running Willow Creek like her personal fiefdom for years. Come by for tea tomorrow. I've got some documents you should see." Clara's home was a cozy archive of legal books and family photos. Over chamomile tea, she pulled out a folder labeled Willow Creek HOA. "Here's the thing most residents don't know," she said, tapping a highlighted page. "The river isn't owned by the HOA. It's leased from Pinnacle Properties. That lease expires in less than 2 months. Margaret's been in talks to buy it for her design firm, not the community. Word is she plans to restrict access and build riverfront condos, marketing them as exclusive retreats for her wealthy clients." Clara leaned forward, her voice low. "She's been tightening river rules to clear it out before the sale. You're kayaking fine? That's just the start." Clara introduced me to Jerome Tate, a retired accountant in his 60s who'd locked horns with Margaret years ago. His study was a fortress of files and spreadsheets. "I started tracking HOA violations as a hobby," Jerome said, pulling up a database on his laptop. "But it's no hobby anymore. Look at this." The data was damning. Homeowners of color received violation notices at twice the rate of white residents. Newcomers like me were cited for infractions, unapproved mailboxes, excessive holiday lights that longtime members got away with. Most revealing, properties sold under duress from mounting fines often ended up with shell companies tied to Margaret's business. Willow Ventures, Hensley Group, Riverfront LLCs. "She's building a real estate empire," Jerome said. "The river's her big prize. Pinnacle's in financial trouble, and she's swooping in. We learned Pinnacle Properties was hemorrhaging cash after a failed retail project. The river, valued at $250,000, was one of their last unencumbered assets. Margaret was offering a finance deal, planning to limit access and develop condos that would shrink public space by 25%. The kayaking ban was her first step to cleanse the river for her vision." Clara, Jerome, and I formed a quiet alliance, meeting in private homes, the library's study rooms, or a local cafe's back booth to avoid Margaret's network of loyalists. We recruited residents like Maya Patel, a teacher fined for excessive garden flowers after questioning an HOA fee hike, and Victor Ruiz, a nurse cited for his kids playing too loudly near Margaret's allies' homes. Their stories mirrored ours. Selective enforcement, veiled threats, a system rigged to silence dissent. Maya shared how Margaret led an inspection committee through her backyard, claiming to check for mosquito hazards, only to issue fines for her rosebush's non-compliant height. Victor described a citation for his dog's unauthorized breed, a golden retriever, despite neighbors' identical dogs going unpunished. When I asked for the rule, she said it was her executive discretion, Victor said, his voice tight. Our group grew to 25 households. Over a fifth of Willow Creek, communicating via a secure app Jerome set up. We documented every violation, every snide remark, building a case against Margaret's reign. Using my private equity contacts, I dug into Pinnacle's finances. They'd overextended on a mall project that collapsed when anchor tenants bailed during the pandemic. Their credit lines were maxed, and they were quietly selling land to dodge bankruptcy. The river was a fire sale asset. Meanwhile, Margaret's firm was a house of cards. Her lavish lifestyle, complete with designer wardrobes and charity galas, was funded by loans against properties. The river deal was her financial lifeline. If it fell through, her empire could crumble. Clara suggested a strategy. Let Margaret overcommit publicly, then derail her plan. She's planning a special HOA meeting to push a river enhancement fee, Clara said. Let her sink her reputation into it, then strike. Jerome nodded. Her heavy-handed fines are backfiring. More residents are joining us every week. We mapped out a multi-pronged approach. Gather evidence, secure allies, and explore buying the river ourselves. I reached out to a former colleague, Nadia Kim, a real estate broker with local connections. Over coffee 20 miles from Willow Creek, Nadia confirmed Margaret's negotiations with Pinnacle. She's offering $250,000 financed over 2 years, Nadia said. Pinnacle's desperate. They take a cash offer in a heartbeat. Margaret sensed resistance. Suddenly, I faced a barrage of fines. $100 for an unapproved mailbox design, $150 for overgrown shrubs, trimmed a week earlier, $200 for porch light wattage. Caleb got a citation for leaving his skateboard in the driveway for 10 minutes. Clara was fined for her birdbat's unapproved color, Jerome for his car's unauthorized window tint. Maya received a notice for her kids' chalk drawings on the sidewalk, deemed graffiti. Victor was cited for his recycling bin's improper placement, 6 inches off center. The violations were absurd, but their intent was clear: intimidate us into submission. The harassment escalated. Caleb came home from school in tears, saying classmates called us troublemakers. I learned the rumors came from Brianna, daughter of Margaret's ally, Susan Carver, who told her we were lowering property values. I nearly gave up, tempted to sell and leave Willow Creek behind. Clara stopped me. Margaret's driven out 6 families this way, she said. She buries them in fines until they sell cheap. Then her shell companies buy the homes. Don't let her win. Her words steeled my resolve. This wasn't just about me and Caleb. It was about every resident she'd bullied. I found a critical leverage point in the HOA bylaws. Margaret's proposed $60 monthly river enhancement fee required 70% resident approval, not the simple majority she claimed at a preliminary meeting. She was banking on apathy to ram it through. I also confirmed Pinnacle would accept a better offer. I proposed $300,000 cash through Harrow Ventures LLC, a shell company I created for anonymity, with closing in 5 days. Pinnacle's CFO jumped at it, and within a week I owned the river. I kept the purchase secret, sharing it only with Clara and Jerome. Margaret planned her big reveal, an HOA meeting to pitch her riverfront vision, complete with renderings of condos that would shrink public access by a quarter. She'd hired a local architect to dazzle residents with promises of elevated property values. I attended, blending into the crowd. Margaret stood at a podium, her PowerPoint titled Willow Creek, a Premier Future. She spent 25 minutes waxing poetic about strategic reimagination, never mentioning her firm's role in developing and selling the condos. When Jerome stood to question the fee's legality, she deflected, referencing a resolved business loan from his past to paint him as unreliable. Perhaps Mr. Tate should focus on his own financial history before critiquing ours, she said with mock sweetness. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Lila Nguyen, a florist who joined our group, suggested a community vote on river changes. Margaret's smile didn't falter. Lila, isn't your shop's lease renewal coming up? It'd be a pity if there were issues. The threat was barely veiled, and Lila sat down pale. Margaret's tactics were textbook: isolate, intimidate, control. But she didn't know her deal was dead. Pinnacle had informed her the river was sold to an anonymous buyer. She confronted me at my doorstep, her composure cracking. Did you sabotage my deal? She demanded. I shrugged, keeping my tone neutral. I heard the river was sold. Hope you've got a good relationship with the new owner. Her eyes narrowed, but I saw a flicker of doubt when I added, I hear the lease expires in 30 days. Might want to check that. Margaret's desperation grew. She organized a Legacy Residence River Party, inviting only her loyalists to reclaim our river. Catered food, live music, and wine bars lined the banks. A blatant show of control. I chose that moment to act. With Clara Jerome, my lawyer Rachel Cohen, and a sheriff's deputy, I walked into the party. Taking the microphone from a stunned caterer, I announced, "Good afternoon, everyone. As the legal owner of this river and its 10-foot shoreline, I'm informing you you're trespassing on private property." I held up the deed. The HOA's recreational use agreement is terminated, effective immediately. You have 15 minutes to leave. The crowd fell silent. Margaret's face flushed crimson as she rushed toward me. "This is a private event. You weren't invited." I held the microphone firmly. "Actually, Margaret, you're the uninvited one. I bought this river from Pinnacle 3 days ago." I nodded to Rachel, who handed me the paperwork. "Officer Daniels is here to ensure an orderly exit. Let's keep this civil." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Margaret's allies glared, but others, residents who'd felt her wrath, exchanged looks of quiet approval. "About time," one whispered as he passed. The party dissolved in chaos, with Margaret shouting about community rights as guests grabbed their wine glasses and fled. I installed private property signs and 24/7 security, then held a press conference with the Willow Creek Gazette. "The river's been neglected for years," I told reporters. "Water tests show pesticide runoff from HOA-approved lawns has spiked phosphate levels, harming fish. I'm turning this into a wildlife preserve, an educational space for kids to learn about ecosystems." I brought in a conservationist, Dr. Elena Torres, whose tests confirmed the river's declining health, proof Margaret's environmental concerns were a sham. Margaret fought back, filing a lawsuit claiming I destroyed community value. Rachel dismantled it in court, presenting the deed and expired lease. Residents turned against Margaret as her condo plans leaked, thanks to a disgruntled assistant who shared her emails with our group. At the next HOA meeting, Leela Wynn found her voice. "I've served on this board for 2 years, she said, her voice shaking but growing steady. "Margaret's diverted $90,000 to a gazebo for her friend's cul-de-sac, while denying swings for the main park, used by 50 families. She targets anyone who questions her." Leela's courage sparked others. Victor spoke about his dog fines, Maya about her garden harassment. The floodgates opened, and years of resentment poured out. I announced free kayaking passes for kids, with one catch: children of HOA leaders were ineligible until their parents resigned. It was petty, but effective. Susan Carver, Margaret's staunchest ally, quit the board within days, citing personal reasons. 2 others followed. Margaret's next move was a misstep. She tried bribing Clara, offering to erase her fines for support. "Think of the community, Clara," she said. Unaware Clara was recording. "I can make those violations vanish, maybe even get you a board seat." Clara shared the audio with me, her eyes gleaming. She forgot I spent 30 years spotting liars in court. Margaret's desperation peaked when security cameras caught her and 2 board members trespassing at night, pouring a suspicious liquid into the river near a kayaking spot. I sent the footage to the sheriff, and Margaret was charged with trespassing and attempted environmental contamination. The scandal broke her grip. An HOA audit, pushed by Lila, uncovered misallocated funds. $120,000 funneled to projects benefiting Margaret's allies, and selective enforcement tied to her real estate deals. Lawsuits piled up from residents she'd targeted. I invited all residents, except current HOA leaders, to my home to discuss the river's future. The turnout was staggering. 90% of Willow Creek's households filled my backyard. I proposed a community trust to manage the river with 3 conditions: a restructured HOA with term limits and transparent voting, a full review of regulations for fairness, and an independent ethics committee. Then I dropped my final card. Over the past month, I've quietly purchased mortgage notes on 18% of Willow Creek's homes from First Valley Bank, I said, pausing as gasps rippled through the crowd. Including Margaret Hensley's. I'm offering below-market refinancing to every homeowner, but only after we fix this broken system. The vote to oust Margaret's board was nearly unanimous. Lila was elected president, vowing reform. I renamed the river Elena's River in honor of my partner and transferred it to the trust with legal safeguards ensuring perpetual access. 3 months later, Caleb and I hosted a community kayaking day. Kids paddled alongside parents, laughter echoing across the water. Families once divided by Margaret's cliques shared picnic blankets. As Caleb and I sat on the bank at sunset, he smiled. A real, unguarded smile. "Mom would love this, Dad," he said, leaning against me. "She'd be proud of us both," I replied, my voice thick. A year later, Willow Creek's HOA reforms were a model for neighboring communities. Margaret moved away, her firm bankrupt, her reputation in tatters. I declined a mayoral run but started a scholarship in Elena's name for kids who'd lost parents to illness. Sometimes the best way to defeat a bully isn't to outmuscle them, it's to rewrite the game and wait for the perfect moment to play your hand.